Okay, so now that I've got the two floor plans set up on my two different page sizes at different scales, now I'm going to go back to the Model tab and make sure I know where that floor plan is. You can see that I've only got the one floor plan, so it's not very confusing. And I want to then draw some dimensions. So I'm going to show you two different ways of drawing dimensions for each scale. So first I'm going to go to the layer that I'm using for annotation, which I've just called A-Anno. And then I'm going to go to the annotation panel, and this is really, again, the most important step probably when you are making dimensions, because here I'm going to make my own dimension style. So again, just to show you that one more time, clicking on the arrow next to annotation to expand that panel, and then you'll see the panels for each of the different style options that you have. So the first one's text, second one is dimensions, and then next to those drop-down panels you have the button to make a style for those things. So here it's a dimension style, the second button on the left. Click there to make a dimension style, and then you'll generally have that ISO 25 style as a starting point, and that's fine. Now I'm just going to click the new button, and so you can see there it starts with ISO 25. I'm going to leave that, and I'm going to type in my own name for my own dimension style, and since I'll only need one, I'm just going to call it dim. So you can call it whatever you like, but again, you'll only need the one. And then I'm going to tick annotative here as well, and then continue. And now I'm going to go through all of these tabs, but not in order. I'm actually going to go to symbols and arrows first, and just change that to one of the tick options. There are two, architectural tick or oblique. You can choose either of those, but I'm going to choose architectural tick. And then you can leave all of those other options. Next, you can go to the Lines tab, and you'll see then that you can adjust all of these settings that relate to ticks. So that's why you need to set that one of those ticks options first. These are ticks, if you're not sure. They're just those diagonal lines, which essentially are half an arrow. That's how they started. Used to be a cross, which was two arrows meeting. Now it's just half of that. So here you can see I've got extend beyond ticks, and I'm going to make that 1. And you'll see it's just going to extend the line here a little bit beyond the tick. And then, so that they match, I'm going to change the extend beyond dim lines here to 1 as well. And that's going to adjust the extension line going from the tick in that direction. So this is the extension line, the vertical one. Also, this here it's vertical. And then the dimension line is the one going across under the number. So this here is the setting for your dimension line, and their extend beyond ticks is obviously extending that line. Leave the other settings, so where it's got by block for all of these options here, just leave those. Baseline spacing doesn't really have much of an effect. You don't really need to worry about that. But then coming down to extension lines, as well as extend beyond dim lines, you should set offset from origin to a higher value than that. Here, it depends on the style you want, but I'm going to set it to 2. And you can see then that it's brought these lines back from the point that they're measuring. So you want at least, I think at least 2, but I'll often take that up to about 5. And you can see then it's just brought those line ends back. Okay, but together with that, I'm going to tick this option here, fixed length extension lines. Now this one you won't see as clearly in the preview, but I'm going to change this to 10, and you'll see this more clearly when I draw the dimension. Okay, so these are all settings that affect these lines that you have there with each dimension. The symbols and arrows we've done, that's the ticks. So then I'm going to go to the text tab, and then I'm going to click the Browse button next to the text style, which you can see is standard. Don't worry if you've got something different. Just going to click the Browse button, and I'm going to make a new text style, clicking on the New button, and I'm also going to call this dim. And so this is a text style that I'm using just for dimensions. And I'm going to change it to a nice simple font like Roman S. So if you don't know, you've got Roman S, which is single line, Roman capitals, or Roman numeral, or letters. And then Roman D is just double line, or duplex, and then Roman T is triplex, sorry, that's not it. There. So that has the serifs as well. So they're nice, still all fairly simple fonts, but of course Roman S is the most simple. And for dimensions, you usually just want a single line font like that. So that's all I need to choose, the font. And then make sure the height is left at 0. Don't change that, leave it at 0. And then simply close, and it'll ask you if you want to save your changes. So just say yes. Then now I can choose dim from the list there. So I'm going to change the text height as well to 2 and leave all the other settings. Next, I'm just going to check the Fit tab, and there we just want to check that annotated is ticked. And actually there, sometimes it's good to check the text placement, but that's fine. I'm just going to leave the first option there. So now I'm going to go to primary units and change the precision to 0. So I don't have decimal points or decimal places, but I am going to have them with my angles. I'm going to change the angle to 1 decimal place at least. So I'm going to get angles there, or sorry, decimal places there with angles. So I'm going to change the decimal separator to a period as well, instead of a comma. And that's it. So I don't need to change the alternate units or tolerances, so I'm going to click OK. And then check that it's the current style. You can see there dim is current. I don't need to click set current. So I'll just click close. And then I'm going to show you what happens if I just go and draw a dimension now. I'm going to use linear. And you can see then it's going to come up with a warning telling me that my annotation scale hasn't been set. And this is a good thing, because if you forget to set it, it does remind you. Okay, so you normally wouldn't draw with 1:1. So here I'm going to change it to 1 to 100. And then click OK. So I'm going to then just click on a corner point that I want to measure, and then the next corner point, come across to the side, and I can easily place the dimension over there. So that's how it should work if everything's set up properly. Down here you can see it's set the scale to 1 to 100. So if I draw another dimension, and I honestly would recommend that you use linear for most of your dimensions where possible. So again, I'm going to use linear. I'm going to then just click 2 corner points inside a room, and then come over, and you can see how easy it is to snap to the previous dimension and line these up exactly. Now, I'll just show you a couple of features there. If I select that dimension now, you can see that the points that were measured are still back where I clicked on the corner, but that the extension line is the same length no matter what. Now, if I draw, I'll just go and draw another linear dimension, maybe coming down this way, and you can see then that if I don't make it long enough, that it's going to get chopped off in an unusual way. So if I have it too close, you can see the extension lines aren't going the right direction. But if I bring it down far enough, then they start to extend. So that what you can see there is that offset from origin setting. So that's setting it out from the corner before it starts the dimension. But if I bring it down far enough, it'll stop extending those lines. And you can see then that the whole line is moving down because it's using that fixed length extension line setting. So those two settings, like I said, they work together. And I'll show you those one more time. So back in the dimension style, again it's the settings here. Offset from origin being 5, so that's measuring from the point you are measuring. And then the fixed length extension line is measuring the other way, so again from the dimension line out. So the second setting only kicks in when you've gone far enough. So you can see there it's not having an effect yet, but if I bring it out far enough, then you can see it reaches that length only. So I'll just give you a few examples then of how you should dimension generally. And so, or in other words, the way that you should lay out your dimensions. You can see here I've got these two internal dimensions, and for interior design and decoration, they're the most important thing. We don't really need external overall dimensions here. But I should have a line of dimensions. So I've got there the two rooms, but I haven't done the wall in between them. So I'm going to draw another linear dimension. And I'll click on to a point on the top of the wall and then a point on the bottom of the wall. You can see then that it's dimensioning across because those points I clicked are diagonal. So across it's 600, but if I come to the left, you'll see that it is, sorry, when it wakes up, there we are, you can see that it's 100 the other way. And that's the good thing about linear dimensions. They'll only dimension either horizontally or vertically. They won't dimension diagonally. And that's a good thing because you normally don't want diagonal dimensions. Especially for a floor plan like this, you shouldn't need any diagonal dimensions. So here we're only concerned with either the vertical or horizontal measurements, and that's where why linear is usually a good option. So now, as I come out, I'm just placing that dimension. I can click anywhere on one of the lines of the previous dimension and it will line up exactly because it's going to snap to that line. Now you can see then that the text has gone to one side and that's difficult to read. So I'm going to select that dimension and use the grips with auto turned off to try and adjust the position of the text. And you can see there it's not moving very easily, and it's also not moving without dimension. So I'm going to press escape and then go into my dimension style, click modify, and I'm going to change the option on the text panel, sorry, not the text panel, on the fit panel for text placement to over dimension line with leader. And then OK, and then close, and you can see then that it's already moved my text and made it easier to read. But if I select that, now if I use the grip, you can see that it's going to bring in a leader as I adjust that text position. And for small dimensions like that, that's usually the best way to have a separate dimension. I'll just show you there's another option when you go into your dimension style. You can, if you want the leader next to your dimension. Sorry, I'm just having trouble reading that on the projector. So I'm looking on the screen now, and it is, sorry. Oh, so it's the next one, back on the text tab, sorry. It's here, you've got text alignment. And so there I'm going to choose ISO standard. And that should change it. There we are. So that's changed the orientation of the text. So some people prefer that option, but that's up to you. So that's always good practice when you dimension, to put a running line of dimensions like that in each direction. And for a drawing like this, you should be focusing on the overall room sizes, not elements within the rooms. So I'm going to continue now from this dimension using linear. And so I want the wall to be done next. I'm just going to dimension that and line it up with the one below. But then I want to keep going without having to choose linear each time. So I'm going to click on the, it's not on there anymore, so I've got to go to the Annotated tab. And then you can see that there is a continue option. I'm just going to click continue. And you can see then that it will just continue from the last dimension. And I can go along clicking onto each wall or each side of each wall. And you can see then it's just going to keep doing a running line of dimensions. And then enter to finish. There we are. So you can see how much quicker that is than using linear each time. So now I'm going to put in a row at the top, so I'll go back to draw a linear dimension again. Just for the first one. And then go to annotate and then continue. And just repeat the process, so clicking again on each side of the wall, ignoring the openings. They should be a separate row of dimensions. Again, here just coming to the end wall. And there we are, so you can see a complete row of dimensions. So I'm just going to switch to the floor plan now. That's at 1 to 100, so on my sheet there you can see my 1 to 100 viewport, and you can see that the dimensions are cut off, so I'm going to select that viewport and expand it just so that you can see them. Come down a bit as well, it's okay. Okay, so just move my text to one side. Okay, so I just wanted to show you that we can see the dimensions in that floor plan because it's 1 to 100. But you might be thinking, well, that's okay, but what about my 1 to 50 floor plan? And you can see that's not a problem because it automatically knows not to show them. Those dimensions were for a different scale. I'll just prove it to you. If I'll have to unlock the viewport. So I'm going to pan just so you can see where the dimensions were. So they're around. In the other viewport, they're around the floor plan, but here they're not. And that's a good thing, because you should be using different dimensions for a drawing like this. So to draw dimensions, you can use the option or the method I just showed you in Model tab, set the scale. And so now I'll choose 1 to 50, and I will draw some linear dimensions again. And so here we can definitely have some more detail showing. I probably would draw these dimensions again for 1 to 50, but I'm going to do some of the extra measurements that we should have, like maybe the openings. That would be a good one. So here I'm going to go along the inside. Well, actually no, so I'm going to start on the outside because we've got a point there. We can measure outside the window and then go along to each corner of an opening. So I'll go back to continue now, and I'm just going to pick on each corner again of my openings. Notice I'm getting the corner of the wall, not the corner of the door jamb. Because you should always dimension the opening, not the things inside it.
Is that when you're doing it
Anytime. Because the windows are made somewhere else. you don't need to dimension the windows at all, really, and definitely the components within the windows you don't need to dimension. The only dimension you're concerned about with the window or any things that are inserted into your openings, doors as well, is the external measurements to make sure it fits into your opening. So, and again, when you're dimensioning your floor plans, the size of the opening is all you need to give, for example, to the builders so they can make it the correct size, and then when the window's supplied, it should fit exactly. So, okay, so now you can see I've got this row of dimensions that set out those openings, and I'm going to switch to the first viewport and just show you here. This is the 1 to 100 floor plan, and notice it's not showing those 1 to 50 dimensions. If I go to the other floor plan that we know is at 1 to 50, you can see if I make that big enough that we can see those dimensions that were drawn with this option set for 1 to 50. And you can tell from the size as well. So notice how here the numbers and the symbols are bigger. So in other words, the ticks and the numbers are bigger than they are in these 1 to 50 dimensions. So that's one way of doing it. You can draw any scale you like on the model tab, as long as you choose the scale down here. But you can also draw them in the viewports. So if I go to that 1 to 50 viewport, and I will just go to model space by double clicking inside the viewport, and then I will just draw a dimension or two here. Okay, so it's visible here, so we know it's 1 to 50. If I go to the 1 to 100 viewport, it's not there. But if I go back to the model tab, again, it shows all scales, so we can see it there as well as the 1 to 100. But can you see why that's a good system? So maybe because by now you probably have done more detailed drawings, and you would see there that you use a completely different set of dimensions to what you would have for a 1 to 100 floor plan, for example. So I know it probably sounds complicated, and I know it was when I explained it earlier, when we're looking at annotation and scale and dimensions and text. Sounds like a complicated system, but actually makes a lot of sense once you know the different types of drawings that you need to produce, and the fact that they have to be often at different scales. So I'll just dimension maybe an elevation, so you can get an idea of the things you should be showing there. Because here you've got things that could be dimensioned horizontally. So by that I mean drawing a dimension across this way to maybe give the size of a door. I've seen people do this. Okay, so do you know why that's a problem? How could that cause problems if I give dimensions like this on my elevations when people go to build? Is there anywhere else where you think they might be getting those measurements? Well, I'll give you an example. So you'll have a bathroom plan, and on that plan you probably give those same dimensions. So I'm going to show you that I can draw a dimension here on the page, but if I snap to a point like this that's in the floor plan, can you see what it's done? It knows. It's really clever the way it does this. It's picked up the viewport even though I didn't go to model space. So what I've done there is I've actually drawn the dimension in paper space, unlike all of the others. All the others were in model space. But this one's on the page, but it's clever enough to know the scale of the viewport that it's measuring from and set the size properly. So that's really useful in situations like this where you need to dimension and have the dimensions going outside the viewport. But also here, I can then put in that measurement from the plan. So again, given the opening size for the door, we don't really need to know the door jamb or anything inside the opening. Okay, so that's clear. Should be crystal clear to the builders that they need to make the opening 800. Now, the elevation may have been done prior to that, and the opening size might have been different, and often won't be updated. So, say it was just slightly different. Okay, could have been bigger or smaller. And, oops, let me fix that. Okay, so that happens all the time because unlike Revit, AutoCAD doesn't have linked views. So if I change the floor plan, the elevation doesn't change and vice versa. Now, that's actually an accepted practice that you don't always adjust the elevations when the plan changes. If it's a minor change, you can easily get away with that because you shouldn't be dimensioning that direction anyway. Because again, it just opens up the possibility for confusion.
So you only dimension the plan?
Yes, where possible. So any dimension that you can pick up in the plan, you shouldn't be dimensioning in the elevations. And it's usually those horizontal measurements. So again, here, these measurements going across that wall can easily be picked up in the floor plan, and that should take precedence over the elevation. So occasionally you will have to dimension horizontally in the floor plan, but you should avoid it where possible and leave the elevations for your vertical dimensions or your heights. That's best practice. So here, again, things like the countertop, that's really important. And, well, mine's wrong, but good chance to check these things and fix it. 920, that should come down 20 mil at least. But again, this is where you check those things. So again, that's the way your elevation should look though, with the vertical dimensions either side, but again, try to avoid those horizontal measurements. So otherwise, maybe just the only other convention that I should quickly mention, and I drew it this way earlier anyway, and that's the way you set out openings. So have you had a look at the order that your dimensions should go? In other words, outside your floor plan, what should come first? What should be closest to the building? Should the room sizes come first? Or should the openings come first? Or the balconies? Here, you probably could put the balcony dimensions on. So you need to think about the order, and I'll maybe just draw in another row of dimensions so it's a little bit clearer. I'll just dimension the corridor. So I'm going to put that underneath. Oh, no, sorry, that's at 1 to 50, so I want this to be the same scale as the ones I've done above, so I'm going to change that back to 1 to 100. And then again, fill my dimension. Ah, and I missed that wall anyway, so that's good. And so here I'm just going to place this below. Doesn't matter that it's overlapping these 150 dimensions, because remember, they're not going to be visible together. So now I'll go and just continue that last dimension. Okay, so you can see there are my hallway measurements, and I've got them below the room sizes, because these can just go in the order they are. So here, if we're in the apartment, it'll go from the hallway, and then going up, next we've got the rooms. So here, that's the order my dimensions go.
So the further it is to the outside of the building, the further away.
That's right. Exactly. Yep, that's right. So, yeah, that's right. The things that are at the top here would go, the dimensions then for those would go
and then you just
higher.
The centre line and do the opposite.
Exactly. That's right. Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, you can use logic as well. So if there were a few rooms up here, for example, I'd still probably dimension those at the top, but then the rooms at the bottom, dimension on that side. But just arrange it in a way that you think makes it clear. But then what's confusing, or maybe not the most logical, but this is the convention, and that is that openings should be closest to the building. So you can see here I've done this row of dimensions for those openings below all of the others. And if I was to put these on my 1 to 100, I may not even want them, but if I was to have them there, they should go below all of the room dimensions. And that's, I know it's not logical, but that's the way it is. So you would think logically, because the openings come after the rooms, they would be at the top. Well, I would have thought logically, but that's something I found out pretty early, that that's not the rule. So again, everything else follows that system, just again in the order that they are in your space, working outwards. But then when you get to the outside of the building and you have your mostly windows but also doors in your exterior walls, that row of dimension should always be closest to the building. So if you want to find out the other there are a few other little conventions that you might want to look up. Remember, they're all in the Australian standard for architectural drawing, which I gave you earlier, AS 1428. Oh no, so that's the visibility, so it's 1100, AS 1100, part 301, this one here with the plus A1, I think is the full document. Yep, there it is. So that has, again, some more detailed rules for dimensioning.
What week folder is that?
It's in construction resources. So just in construction one, you'll see construction resources there, and then Australian standards. Okay, so hopefully they'll give you some good steps for making your dimensions. I'll give you some time just to try those. You should just make sure you can get at least dimensions working for a couple of scales. And then you will need to dimension everything in these drawings in the end. So make sure those things are working, and then you should be able to go through and dimension everything at the end pretty quickly.